She sent her goodbye text to the wrong number. The man who answered was the one man in Chicago no one dared to call by accident. At 11:07 on a freezing November night, Claire Bennett sat alone in a hospital parking garage with $17 in her wallet, a $91,000 medical bill beside her, and one final message glowing on her phone. Her mother was fighting to breathe upstairs. Her sister was not answering. Claire believed she had reached the end. Then her phone vibrated. A stranger named Dominic Russo had received the message. He did not know her face or story, or the danger her name would soon bring into his world. He only knew she was disappearing, and he refused to let it happen. Stay until the end, because this is not only a story about being saved, it is about the price of protection, the limits of love, and the courage to choose tomorrow. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. But before Dominic Russo became the stranger who refused to let Claire Bennett disappear, there had been 19 days of fluorescent lights, cold coffee, unanswered calls, and the quiet humiliation of learning that love could not pay a hospital bill. 19 days earlier, Helen Bennett had collapsed behind the counter of Miller's Diner during the Sunday breakfast rush. Claire learned about it from a busboy named Tommy. Her number had been taped beside the register under a note in Helen's handwriting. Call Claire first. By the time Claire reached St. Catherine Medical Center, her mother was already behind double doors. A nurse asked for Helen's insurance card. A resident asked about heart trouble. A clerk asked Claire to sign 3 forms she did not understand. Everyone needed an answer, so Claire gave them one even when her voice shook. Pneumonia, the doctor said. Then respiratory failure. Then complications from a heart condition Helen had spent years calling nothing serious. The words stopped sounding like language. Through the intensive care unit window, Claire watched strangers move around her mother's body. A machine breathed with a rhythm that did not belong to Helen. Clear tubes crossed her cheeks. Tape held lines against the skin of her hands. That morning, Helen's last words to Claire had been, "You work too much." Claire had laughed. Now the memory felt sharp beneath her ribs. Her older sister Rachel arrived by phone instead of in person. Claire stood in a stairwell while Rachel whispered from a bathroom in Milwaukee. "The kids both have a fever and Jason took the car. Mom is on a ventilator." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." Rachel went quiet. "I can come Friday." It was Monday. Claire pressed her forehead to the concrete wall. "Fine. You always say that when it isn't. I have to go." For the first week, Claire left the hospital only to shower and change clothes. She told the principal at Lakeside Elementary that she needed a few days. A few days became a week. A week became unpaid leave. Her classroom aide sent a photograph of the paper planets Claire's third graders had made. One child had written "Miss Bennett, come back soon" across Saturn's rings. Claire saved the picture and could not look at it again. At the hospital, time became medication changes, oxygen levels, and shift schedules. Marisol worked nights and wore red reading glasses on a chain. She hummed old Motown songs while adjusting Helen's blankets. Dr. Foster spoke slowly as if every sentence had to cross a fragile bridge. Mr. Ellis from billing always looked apologetic before he spoke. Claire learned which vending machine stole dollar bills, which waiting room had a working outlet, and when the chapel was empty. She learned that grief could live inside the body before anyone died. At first, friends sent messages. "Thinking of you. Let me know if you need anything. Praying for your mom." Claire answered each one with the same lie. "We are hanging in there." By the second week, the messages slowed. No one meant to abandon her. Life simply continued elsewhere. Claire became the person who spoke to doctors, signed forms called insurance, and remembered where Helen kept her spare key. She became useful enough that no one noticed she was disappearing. The morning after the parking garage, Claire followed a nurse back to intensive care. Helen's eyes were open. For 45 minutes, the room changed. Helen recognized the ceiling. She recognized Marisol. Then she looked at Claire and frowned. "Your hair looks terrible." Claire laughed so suddenly it became a sob. "Nice to see you too." Helen lifted one finger and pointed at her. Claire. Just her name. Nothing poetic, nothing final. After days of hearing her mother call her Nurse Honey or Rachel, the sound of her own name felt like a hand reaching through dark water. 45 minutes later, Helen drifted back into confusion. The doctor said recovery did not move in a straight line. There would be better hours and worse ones. Claire nodded like she understood. She stepped into the hall and called Rachel. No answer. Then she looked at the unknown number from the night before. She should have deleted it. Instead, she typed, "She said my name today." The reply came 2 minutes later. "That sounds like a good day. It was 45 minutes, then keep all 45. Claire read the sentence twice. There was no promise that Helen would recover, no demand that Claire stay positive, only permission to keep 1 good hour without asking it to become a miracle. The stranger sent another message. "I'm Dominic." Claire hesitated. Claire. That was how it began. At first, Claire expected the conversation to end every time she set the phone down. Strangers did not remain strangers for long. They either became familiar or vanished. Dominic did neither. He stayed at the edge of her life, present but unseen. He never asked for a photograph. He never asked whether she was single. He never turned her fear into an invitation. When Claire went silent for 6 hours, he sent only one message. Still there, she answered from beside Helen's bed. Yes. His reply came at once. Good. The simplicity of it unsettled her. Every other person in her life needed something from her. A decision, a signature, reassurance. Dominic seemed satisfied with proof that she had not disappeared. Not with a face, not with flowers. Only 2 names moving across a city where neither person knew what the other looked like. Their first conversations stayed small. "Did you eat?" Dominic asked. "Coffee counts." "No. Hospital coffee has calories. So does cardboard." A laugh escaped her. Marisol looked up from Helen's chart. "There she is." "Who?" "The woman who used to know how to smile." Claire lowered the phone. An hour later, she sent Dominic a photograph of a vending machine sandwich. Satisfied, deeply concerned. The next night, he remembered Marisol's name. Is the singing nurse working? Most people forgot details as soon as a conversation ended. Dominic collected them quietly. Yes, she is murdering Marvin Gaye. What does your mother think she used to sing louder? Used to before all this? Dominic did not ask her to explain. He asked what Helen's favorite song was. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Good choice. She said it was romantic. Do you disagree? I think promising there is no mountain high enough is irresponsible. His answer came after a pause. Maybe the promise is not that the mountain is small. Maybe someone climbs anyway. Claire looked at the green line moving beside her mother's bed. Across Chicago, Dominic sat in a private room above Russo's restaurant on Taylor Street. 5 men surrounded a table covered with ledgers and property photographs. His uncle Vincent sat at the head, though everyone watched Dominic before speaking. The contractor is refusing our terms, Vincent said. Dominic's phone lit beneath his hand. Claire had answered. Vincent noticed. Are we interrupting you? Dominic turned the phone face down. No. Vincent slid a photograph across the table. It showed a warehouse owner leaving his office with his daughter. He owes us. He owes the company, Dominic said. He owes the family. Those are not the same thing. One of the men suggested using the daughter to motivate him. Dominic looked at the man. The room went still. No family. I was only saying it might work. You said enough. Vincent leaned back. Mercy is expensive. So is chaos. The meeting ended without agreement. Marco Bellini followed Dominic into the hall. Who is Claire? Dominic stopped. Marco nodded toward the phone. You checked it 12 times. You counted. I get bored. Dominic continued walking. She is nobody you need to know. Nobody usually has a name. Dominic turned. No one contacts her, no one follows her, no one goes near the hospital. Marco's humor disappeared. Does she know who you are? No. That sounds temporary. Dominic looked through the front windows at snow gathering over Chicago. Everything is. At St. Catherine, Claire's days narrowed around Helen. Some mornings her mother knew exactly where she was. Other mornings she stared at Claire as if trying to place a face from a dream. Claire learned not to show pain when that happened. She talked about ordinary things. The leaking faucet, the neighbor's dog, the mug waiting for Helen behind the diner counter. She did not talk about money. The first insurance letter arrived on day 12. The second came 2 days later. Both used calm phrases, partial coverage, non-covered procedure, patient responsibility. Claire called the insurance company 3 times. The first representative transferred her. The second placed her on hold for 46 minutes. The third told her to file an appeal and wait 30 business days. My mother may not have 30 days. The representative became quiet. I am very sorry, but the process remains the same. After the call, Claire sat on the floor outside an empty consultation room and pressed her fist against her mouth. Her phone vibrated. How was today? Claire typed terrible. She erased it. I cannot do this. She erased that too. Finally, she wrote long. The phone rang. Dominic had never called before. Claire watched his name until the screen nearly went dark, then answered. Neither spoke at first. She heard traffic on his side and voices behind a closed door. Dominic said, "You do not have to make it sound smaller for me." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Her eyes burned. "The insurance company says some of her treatment is not covered. They want forms and appeals. Every time I understand something, someone gives it a different name." He listened. "They asked if she authorized me to speak for her. She can barely stay awake. They asked if I know the code to her account. I don't even know where she keeps stamps." Her breath caught. I am supposed to know everything because I am the daughter who handles things. Who decided that everyone, including you. Claire closed her eyes. Especially me. The first tear fell. I am tired. I know. No, you don't. No, he said. Not exactly. The honesty steadied her more than reassurance would have. And what do you want? She asked. Dominic was silent long enough that she thought the call had dropped. For you to keep answering. Why, because you answered once. It should not have been enough. Somehow it was. They began speaking most nights. Dominic rarely volunteered details, but Claire learned the shape of his life through what he avoided. He lived alone, though people were always nearby. He worked for his family. He slept badly. He knew expensive wine and cheap diner coffee. One night Claire asked what he did. Family business. That sounds intentionally vague. It is. Legal. A pause. Some days are more complicated than others. That is not an answer. No. At least you admit it. I try not to lie to you. The wording stayed with her. Not I do not lie, only I try not to. Rachel came to Chicago on day 16. She arrived with an overnight bag, 2 grocery sacks, and guilt disguised as impatience. When she saw Helen through the glass, her face changed. Oh, God. For 2 days, Rachel spoke to doctors, brought Claire food, and sat beside their mother. Then Jason called. One child had a fever. The school needed paperwork. The car payment was late. Rachel stood near the elevator with her coat on. I have to go, Claire nodded. I know. I can come back next week. Okay. Please do not say it like that. Like what? Like I am leaving you here. Claire looked toward Helen's room. You are? Rachel's eyes filled. I have a family. So do I. The elevator doors opened. Rachel whispered, I am sorry. Claire wanted to accept it. She wanted to scream. Instead, she said, drive safely. That night, Dominic asked whether Rachel had helped. She tried. Is that enough, no? Do you want me to tell you it should be no good? Claire stared at the screen. You always know what not to say. Practice. With who? The 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. Someone I failed. What happened? I thought protecting her meant keeping her uninformed. Did it know? Claire waited, but he said nothing more. The next morning, Mr. Ellis asked Claire to meet him in the billing office. The room had no windows. A plastic plant stood beneath a framed photograph of a lake. Mr. Ellis folded his hands over a thick file. The current patient responsibility is $91,430. Claire stared at him. I am sorry. What? He repeated the amount. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Mr. Ellis explained payment plans, hardship applications, charitable assistance, and appeal procedures. Claire wrote everything down. Her handwriting became smaller with each sentence. That night, she opened a yellow legal pad beside Helen's bed and drew a line down the center. At the top of one side, she wrote possible, return to work, sell the car, apply for assistance, move into Helen's apartment, ask Rachel for help. On the other side, she wrote impossible, $91,430. Her phone lit. Dominic, how is your mother sleeping? And you, Claire, almost wrote fine. Instead, she wrote, I do not know. He called. This time she answered immediately. She told him about the bill, the appeals, the payment plans, and the yellow legal pad. When she finished, he asked, What happens if you cannot pay? I lose everything slowly instead of all at once. Your mother's care will continue. That does not mean there are no consequences. No. Claire looked at her reflection in the dark hospital window. I hate that you never tell me things will be fine. Would you believe me? No. Then I would be saying it for myself. Before ending the call, Dominic asked for the name of the foundation handling her assistance request. Claire frowned. Why? I know people who work with medical charities. I am not asking you for money. I know. She gave him the name only after he promised not to interfere. When the call ended, Dominic remained seated in his dark study. Marco entered without knocking. Vincent is waiting. Dominic searched for the Fairmont Medical Relief Foundation, one of the Russo family's legal charities. Helen Bennett's account appeared within seconds. $91,430. Marco moved closer. What are you doing? Something she told me not to do. You barely know her. Dominic looked at Claire's original message, printed on a single sheet of paper. Please tell Mom I stayed as long as I could. Ask her, Marco said. She will say no. Maybe no is the answer. Dominic stared at the balance. He remembered another woman saying she was fine because he had taught her that truth created danger. He remembered a hospital room and the cost of arriving too late. Then he opened the foundation's payment portal. At 8:12 the next morning, Mr. Ellis found Claire outside Helen's room. Ms. Bennett, there has been a change. Is it the appeal? No. The balance has been paid in full. Claire stared at him. That is not possible. It was processed overnight through the Fairmont Medical Relief Foundation. I only submitted the application yesterday. The payment did not come through the standard process. Who sent it? The donor requested anonymity. Claire looked through the glass at her mother. The machines continued their steady rhythm. The weight crushing her had vanished so suddenly that she could not breathe around the absence of it. Her phone vibrated. She already knew the name on the screen. Dominic. How is your mother this morning? Claire looked at the paid balance in Mr. Ellis's hands. Gratitude rose beside something colder. Suspicion. She typed 3 words. What did you do? The message remained unread for less than 10 seconds. Then the 3 dots appeared. Dominic answered. I made a phone call. Claire stared at the screen until the letters blurred. A phone call does not erase $91,000. His reply came more slowly. Mine did. The hallway seemed to tilt beneath her. Mr. Ellis was still speaking, explaining that the payment had cleared, and that Helen's account no longer carried an outstanding balance. Claire heard his voice, but the words no longer reached her. She thanked him because that was what people did when someone handed them a miracle. Then she walked into an empty consultation room and locked the door. She called Dominic. He answered before the first full ring. Claire, you paid it. Silence. You promised you would not interfere. I promised I would not interfere with your application. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That is what you are going with? No. Then explain it. I saw the balance. I could remove it. So you did? Yes. As if it belonged to you. No. As if I belonged to you. His voice changed. I have never thought that. You found my mother's account. You used some foundation connected to your family. You moved nearly $100,000 without telling me. And now you are saying this has nothing to do with control. It was not meant to control you. Intent does not decide what something becomes. Dominic did not answer. Claire pressed a hand against her forehead. Where are you? At home. Give me the address. No. The answer came too fast. Claire went still. You can find me my mother, her hospital account, and every debt attached to her name, but I cannot know where you live. I did not say you cannot know. You said no. Because you are angry. I am allowed to be angry. Yes. Then give me the address. Dominic exhaled. Claire, do not come here. Why? Another silence. The kind that carried more information than words. Who are you? She asked. You already know my name. That is not what I asked. A nurse knocked on the consultation room door. Claire lowered her voice. You will tell me where to find you, or I will find out myself. That would be a mistake. Paying my mother's bill was a mistake. No, Dominic said. It was a decision you hate. Do not tell me what I feel. I am trying not to. Try harder. She ended the call. For the first time since the balance disappeared, Claire felt steady. Not calm. Anger was not calm. But anger had shape. It gave her somewhere to stand. She returned to Helen's room and sat beside the bed. Her mother slept under a thin white blanket. The oxygen machine whispered with each breath. Claire looked at Helen's face and tried to understand what $91,000 meant when it no longer existed. Relief came first. It was immediate and physical. Her shoulders lowered, her jaw unclenched. The future opened by an inch. Then shame followed. Not because she had needed help, because someone had seen her need and entered it without permission. A gift could still be an invasion, especially when the giver knew how impossible it was to refuse. Claire took out her phone and opened the search bar. She typed Dominic Russo, Chicago. The results were crowded with names: Russo Construction, Russo Logistics, Russo Hospitality Group, Russo Family Foundation. A photograph showed men in dark suits standing beside a city council member at a charity dinner. Dominic was near the edge of the frame, half turned away from the camera. Claire enlarged the image. It was the first time she had seen his face. He looked younger than she expected and more tired. Dark hair, controlled expression, a scar near his right eyebrow. She studied him with the strange intimacy of someone who already knew the sound of his silence. Another result showed an older man named Vincent Russo leaving a federal courthouse. The article mentioned an investigation into union corruption and illegal gambling. No charges had been filed. Dominic's name appeared once near the bottom. Nephew and executive officer. Claire opened another article, then another. Most of them said very little. The Russo businesses were large private and layered through companies with different names: restaurants, warehouses, trucking contracts, real estate, legal enough to appear on donation plaques, dark enough to attract federal attention. Claire searched the Fairmont Medical Relief Foundation. The foundation had paid millions in hospital assistance over the past decade. Its website showed smiling families and polished statements about dignity access and community care. One board member was an attorney who worked for Russo Holdings. Another was a retired judge. Claire clicked through public records until the letters began to swim. She found an address for a Russo-owned brownstone in River North. Then she stopped. An address was not proof that Dominic lived there. She opened their old messages. He had once mentioned hearing the brown line after midnight. Another time he had described the river turning silver outside his study. He knew a restaurant that roasted garlic before sunrise and made the entire block smell warm in winter. Claire searched the restaurant, 3 blocks from the brownstone. Her pulse quickened. She called Rachel. Her sister answered on the 4th ring. Is Mom okay? She is stable. What happened? Her bill was paid. Rachel went quiet. What do you mean paid? All of it. By who? The man from the wrong number. A longer silence followed. The one you have been talking to? Yes. The stranger? Yes. The stranger paid $91,000. Yes. Claire, that is not romantic. I did not say it was. It sounds like you need someone to say it. Claire walked toward the window. Outside, snow dusted the roofs of parked cars. I found an address. Rachel's voice sharpened. No. I am going to ask him what he wants. You can ask him on the phone. He lies by omission. So your solution is to walk into the home of a rich man connected to a federal investigation. I am not walking in. That is not the reassuring distinction you think it is. Claire closed her eyes. I need to see who I've been talking to. No, you need sleep and an attorney. Rachel. No. Claire almost laughed. For once, her sister sounded exactly like her, firm, practical, frightened. I will send you the address, Claire said. I will call when I arrive and when I leave. If I do not call within 20 minutes, contact the police. You are asking me to help you do something reckless. I'm asking you to know where I am. Rachel cursed under her breath. Then she said, Send it. Claire left the hospital just after noon. The city looked colorless beneath the winter sky. Salt stained the roads. Wind pushed between buildings. People moved quickly with their heads lowered. The brownstone stood on a quiet street near the river set behind a black iron gate. It did not look like the home of a criminal empire. It looked old, expensive, and certain of itself. Claire sent the address to Rachel. Then she took a photograph of the building and added the time. 12:47. She approached the gate. A small camera turned toward her. Before she could press the intercom, a voice spoke from the metal panel. "Ms. Bennett." Claire stepped back. The gate unlocked with a soft click. That frightened her more than if it had remained closed. She entered the narrow courtyard. The front door opened before she reached it. A broad-shouldered man in a dark coat stood inside. He was not Dominic. "You are Claire Bennett," he said. She kept one hand inside her coat pocket around her phone. "That is not reassuring." The man's eyes moved over the street behind her. "No one followed you." "I did not ask you to check." "No." A second figure appeared beyond him. Claire recognized Dominic immediately. The photograph had not captured the stillness around him. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. No tie, no jacket. A thin scar crossed one arm near the wrist. His gaze settled on her face, and something in his expression softened. Not surprise. Recognition. As if he had known her before seeing her. "Let her in, Marco." Marco stepped aside. Claire did not move. Dominic looked at her hand inside her pocket. "Is your sister waiting for a call?" Claire's anger returned so fast that it steadied her. "How do you know I have a sister? You told me her name." "I told you her name. I did not tell you what I said to her today." "I guessed." "Do you guess often, or do you usually have people find out?" Marco glanced toward Dominic. Dominic said, "You can remain outside if you prefer." Claire looked past him. The entryway was quiet. No visible guards, no obvious weapons. That meant nothing. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. Warm air touched her face. The house smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. Family photographs lined the wall. Weddings, baptisms, men in military uniforms, children seated on stone steps. The images made the place feel human. Claire almost resented that. Dominic led her to the kitchen. It was large, but not showy. Copper pans hung above a dark wooden island. A bowl of lemons sat near the stove. Marco remained in the doorway. Dominic looked at him. "Give us the room." Marco did not move. "Dom." "The room." Marco studied Claire once more, then left. Dominic waited until the door closed. Claire placed the printed hospital statement on the counter between them. $91,430. Dominic looked at the paper. "Yes." "You say that like I asked whether it was raining." "What would you prefer? I say the truth." "I paid the balance." "Why? You know why." "No, I know what you want me to believe." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And what is that?" "That you saw a woman in trouble and decided to help." "That is what happened." "No, you saw a woman you could investigate. You found her mother. You found her debt. Then you made yourself necessary." Dominic did not react immediately. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. "I did not need you to know it was me. But I did know." "Yes." "Because no one else could have done it." "That does not mean I wanted gratitude." "Then what did you want?" "Nothing." Claire shook her head. "No one spends that much money for nothing." "I did not spend it for nothing." She waited. Dominic placed both hands on the edge of the counter. "I spent it because I could remove one reason for you to send another message like the first one." The words struck harder than she expected. Claire looked away. "Do not use that night against me." "I am not." "You printed the message." Dominic's expression changed. Claire saw the answer before he reached into a drawer. He removed a single folded sheet of paper and set it beside the hospital statement. Her message. "I'm sorry, I tried to keep everything together. Please tell Mom I stayed as long as I could." Claire felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with clothing. "You kept it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I needed to remember exactly what you said. You had it on your phone." "Phones can be erased." So can paper. I know. Claire looked at him. Who was she? Dominic went still. The person you failed. He did not ask how she remembered. Her name was Anna. What happened? This is not about her. It became about her the moment you decided I was someone you had to rescue. A muscle moved in his jaw. I did not rescue you. You paid my mother's bill. That removed a debt. You think those are different? Yes. Claire stepped closer to the counter. Then explain the difference. Dominic met her eyes. Rescue demands ownership. Debt payment does not. You decided that too. Silence settled between them. Dominic looked down at her message. You are right. Claire had expected resistance. His agreement unsettled her. You had no right, she said. No. You invaded my life. Yes. You made a decision for me. Yes. Stop agreeing as if that fixes it. It does not. Then why are you doing it? Because lying would make it worse. Claire's anger had been built for a fight. Dominic refused to give her one. She folded her arms. What do you expect from me now? Nothing. No calls. No. No gratitude. No. No access to my mother. His expression hardened. Never without your permission. No favors later. No. Then why does this house have cameras? Because my name creates enemies. And what exactly does your name mean? Dominic looked toward the closed kitchen door. It means my family owns businesses throughout the city. That is the answer you give reporters. It is still true. It is not complete. No. Claire nodded slowly. Are you a criminal? Dominic did not look away. I have committed crimes. The honesty made the room colder. What kind? Financial, political, things done through companies and men who prefer not to be named? Have you hurt people? His silence lasted too long. Yes, Claire swallowed. Did the money come from that? No. How can I know? You cannot. That is convenient. It came from a property I own personally. The foundation processed it legally. The hospital account was handled through its charitable office. You knew my mother's full name. You told me. You found the rest? Yes. After promising not to interfere? Yes. Claire picked up the hospital statement. I want to return it. Dominic's voice remained calm. The hospital will not reverse a charitable payment to place the debt back on your mother. Then I will repay the foundation. Claire, I mean it. At what cost? That is my decision. He looked at her for a long moment. Then I will have the foundation prepare documents, no interest, no deadline. She had expected him to refuse. Why would you agree to that? Because you asked. The answer found the exact place where her anger hurt most. Claire looked away. A sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Fast. Marco opened the kitchen door without knocking. His face had changed. He looked first at Dominic, then at Claire. We have a problem. Dominic straightened. What kind? Marco's gaze moved toward the windows. The kind that means she should not be standing there. Dominic crossed the room in 3 steps. He caught Claire by the arm and pulled her away from the glass. A black sedan idled across the street. The rear window was open. A phone lens caught the light. Claire heard a camera shutter. Then the sedan accelerated into traffic. Dominic released her immediately, not slowly, not reluctantly, as if he understood that holding her without permission was another line he had already crossed once. Claire stared at the empty street. Who was that? Marco moved toward the front hall. I will check the cameras. Dominic did not take his eyes from the road. Dominic. He turned to her. The warmth was gone from his face. The man who had asked whether she ate remembered Marisol's name and listened to her cry had vanished behind something colder, something trained. Claire repeated the question. Who was that? Dominic stepped between her and the window. Someone who should not know your face. Why would they care? His eyes held hers. Because they just saw you walk into my home. Claire felt the truth settle around her. The bill had been paid. The debt had disappeared. But the stranger on the other side of the wrong number had not entered her life alone. Dominic looked toward the door where Marco had vanished. Then he reached for his phone. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet enough to be more frightening than a shout. Lock the house! Marco disappeared into the hallway. A series of mechanical sounds moved through the brownstone. Bolts slid into place. The front gate closed. Somewhere above them, heavy curtains dropped across the windows. Claire stood in the center of the kitchen with the hospital statement still in her hand. Dominic remained between her and the glass. "Tell me who took that picture." "I do not know yet." "Then tell me why someone would care that I came here." His attention stayed on the street. "Because people watch this house. Police. Sometimes. Who else? Men who want what my family controls." Claire felt her heartbeat in her throat. She had expected secrets. She had expected money influence and perhaps enough corruption to explain the courthouse photographs. She had not expected a stranger across the street to photograph her like evidence. Dominic reached for the kitchen door. "We need to move to the interior room." Claire did not follow. "You said I would get the truth. This is not the place. It became the place when your people locked the doors." Dominic turned. His face had changed, but his voice remained controlled. "Claire, whoever was in that car may still have someone nearby. And that makes you honest now. It makes me careful. No, it makes you powerful. There is a difference." For the first time since she entered the house, something flashed in his eyes. Not anger at her, fear for her. It vanished almost immediately. Marco returned with a tablet in his hand. The sedan came from the west. Plates were stolen. 2 men inside. Recognition. Not yet. Dominic looked at the screen. Marco turned it toward him. A still image showed the black sedan at the curb. The passenger was barely visible behind the open window. Claire stepped closer. Marco shifted the tablet away from her. She noticed. "So I am important enough to be photographed, but not important enough to see the picture." Marco looked at Dominic. Dominic said, "Show her." Marco did not approve, but he obeyed. Claire studied the image. The passenger wore a dark coat and a baseball cap pulled low. The driver looked older, thick neck, gray at the temples, a scar along his cheek. She had never seen either man. Dominic had. His eyes sharpened. "Salvatore Greco." Marco nodded. Claire looked between them. "Who is that?" "A man who works for the Carbone crew," Dominic said. "What is the Carbone crew?" Marco answered before Dominic could. "Competition." Dominic's gaze hardened. "Leave us." Marco set the tablet down. "Vincent needs to know." "He will. Before or after this becomes a war." "Marco." The warning in Dominic's voice ended the conversation. Marco looked at Claire once more, then left. The kitchen door closed behind him. Claire folded the hospital statement and placed it in her coat pocket. "I am leaving." "No." The word came out with the force of instinct. Claire went still. Dominic corrected himself. "It is not safe for you to leave alone." "That is not the same thing." "No. You do not get to lock me inside your house." "I am not locking you in." She looked toward the secured windows. "What would you call it? Keeping the person outside from getting a second photograph. He already has one. That does not mean I give him more." Claire stared at him. There it was again. Not malice, not cruelty. The calm certainty of a man accustomed to making decisions before anyone else could object. "You do not give him anything," she said. "I am not yours to give." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I know." "You keep saying that after you act like you do not." The sentence landed harder than either of them expected. Dominic looked away first. Claire walked toward the kitchen door. He did not stop her. In the hallway, 2 men stood near the front entrance. Neither held a visible weapon, but both watched her with the alert stillness of men who did not need to display one. The house no longer looked warm. Every family photograph became a reminder that power could wear a human face. Dominic followed several feet behind her. "Claire." She reached for the door. One of the men stepped forward. Dominic said, "Move." The man hesitated. Dominic's voice lowered. "She is not a prisoner." The man stepped aside. Dominic approached the security panel and entered a code. The locks released one by one. Claire kept her hand on the door. "If I leave now, what happens? Marco drives you to the hospital." "No." "Then I drive you." "No." "Claire, I came here by myself." "I will leave by myself." Dominic studied her face. "You were followed." You do not know that. We do not know that you were not. That is how men like you justify everything." His expression changed at the words, "men like you." Claire continued, "You create a world where danger is everywhere. Then you become the only person allowed to decide what safety looks like." Dominic did not defend himself. He opened the front door. Cold air rushed into the house. "Your car is 2 blocks east." Claire had not told him where she parked. She looked at him. Dominic understood immediately. "Marco saw you arrive." "Of course he did." Claire stepped outside. Dominic followed her to the gate but did not cross it. "Call your sister." "I was already planning to." "Do not take the same route back." She turned. "Stop." He fell silent. Claire stood beneath the bare branches of a street tree while snow gathered on the shoulders of her coat. "I am going to leave. I am going to call Rachel. I am going to return to my mother. Those are my decisions." Dominic nodded once. "If someone follows me, I will call the police." His expression stayed unreadable. "Not you." A small muscle moved in his jaw. "I understand." Claire looked at the house behind him. "No, you understand the words. I do not know whether you understand what they mean." She walked away. Dominic remained at the gate until she turned the corner. Only then did Marco step from the shadows near the entrance. "You are letting her go alone." "Yes." "That is reckless." "It is her choice." Marco looked toward the corner where Claire had disappeared. "Since when has that stopped you?" Dominic turned back to the house. "Since she was right." Claire called Rachel before reaching her car. Her sister answered immediately. "Are you safe?" "I am outside." "Did he hurt you?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Then why do you sound like that?" Claire unlocked the Honda and checked the back seat before getting in. "Because he told me the truth. About the bill. About enough." She started the engine but did not pull away. Rachel waited. Claire looked at the brownstone in the rearview mirror. "His family is connected to organized crime." Rachel made a sound that was almost a laugh. Not because it was funny. Because the alternative was panic. "Organized crime?" "Yes." "You met a Mafia man through a wrong number." "I did not know." "And he paid Mom's hospital bill." "Yes." "Claire, listen to the sentence you just said." "I am listening." "Give the money back." "I tried." "Try harder." "I'm going to." Rachel breathed into the phone. "Come to Milwaukee." "I cannot leave, Mom." "Then I will come to Chicago." "You have the kids." "I also have a sister who walked into a criminal's house alone." Claire closed her eyes. "I sent you the address." "As if that would stop someone from putting you in a river." "That is not helping." "Good. I am done trying to make things easier for you." The words cut through Claire's exhaustion. Rachel's voice broke. "I received your message that night." Claire went still. "What?" "The goodbye message. You never said anything. I thought you were overwhelmed. I thought you were saying you were done with the hospital or the bills or me. I said to tell Mom I stayed as long as I could." "I know." "How did you read that and wait until morning?" Rachel began crying. "I do not know." Claire stared through the windshield at the gray street. All this time she had imagined Rachel had missed the message completely. That had hurt. The truth hurt differently. "You should have called." "I know." "You should have come." "I know." "I needed you." Rachel's voice collapsed into a whisper. "I know." Claire pressed her fingers against her eyes. The anger she had carried toward Dominic tangled with a deeper wound. The stranger had understood what her own sister had not. That did not make Dominic safe. It did not make Rachel heartless. It only made the night more complicated than Claire wanted it to be. Rachel said, "I'm coming tomorrow." "You do not have to. Do not protect me from feeling guilty." Claire lowered her hand. "Fine." Rachel gave a shaky laugh. "You always say that when it isn't." This time Claire almost smiled. "I will call when I reach the hospital." "You had better." Claire ended the call and drove away. She checked the mirrors at every turn. No black sedan appeared. No one followed her through the downtown traffic. Still, when she entered the hospital garage, she parked beneath a security camera. Helen was awake when Claire returned. Her mother sat slightly raised in bed, an oxygen tube beneath her nose. The ventilator had been removed 2 days earlier, but each breath still looked deliberate. Helen watched Claire remove her coat. "You look angry." Claire placed her bag on the chair. "I am tired." "That is not the same face." Helen's voice was weak, but her eyes were clear. Claire poured water into a cup and held the straw near her mother's lips. Helen took a small sip. "Did you argue with Rachel?" "Not exactly." "A doctor?" "No." "A man?" Claire looked at her. Helen smiled faintly. "There it is. There is nothing. Your father used to say that before telling me something expensive." Claire sat beside the bed. "Do you remember the hospital bill? I remember telling you not to show it to me." "It was paid." Helen's smile disappeared. "By who? A foundation. That answer has a man hiding behind it." Claire looked down at her hands. Helen waited. "The stranger from the message. The one who kept calling." "He did not keep calling. We talked." "How much did he pay?" Claire told her. Helen closed her eyes. For several seconds, the only sound in the room was the oxygen machine. "Does he want something?" "He says no." "Do you believe him?" "I believe he thinks he does not." Helen opened her eyes again. "That is not the same thing." "No." "Does he scare you?" Claire thought of Dominic standing between her and the window, his hand on her arm, the way he released her as soon as he realized he had crossed a line. "His world does." Helen studied her. "That was not what I asked." Claire looked toward the darkened window. "No. Maybe he should. That is what I thought." Helen shifted carefully against the pillow. "Fear is useful. It tells you where to look. You always said fear was a waste of time." "I said worrying was a waste of time. Fear can keep you alive." Claire adjusted the blanket over her mother's feet. "He knows too much about me." "Do you know anything about him?" "Not enough." "Then do not confuse being understood with understanding." Claire looked at her mother. It was the clearest thing Helen had said in days. A knock sounded at the door. Marisol entered carrying a tray of medication. "You are awake and giving orders," she said to Helen. "That is a good sign." Helen pointed weakly toward Claire. "She needs orders. That is beyond my medical authority." For a few minutes, the room felt almost ordinary. Claire held on to that feeling until Helen fell asleep. Then she checked her phone. No message from Dominic. The absence should have relieved her. Instead, she found herself opening their conversation. The last message was her accusation. "What did you do?" Below it were the words she had sent from his house. "Do not contact me until I decide what I want." Dominic had answered only once. "Understood." Claire set the phone down. Across the city, Dominic stood in his study while Vincent Russo poured bourbon into 2 glasses. Vincent was 63, silver-haired, and dressed as though every evening might end with a photograph. He had the polished patience of a man who preferred other people to raise their voices first. Marco stood near the door. On the desk lay the security image of Salvatore Greco. Vincent picked it up. "Carbone is testing you." He photographed a civilian. Vincent looked amused. "There are no civilians near this family." "There are now." "Because you brought one here." Dominic said nothing. Vincent placed the photograph down. "I heard about the hospital payment." Dominic looked at Marco. Marco's expression did not change. Vincent smiled. "You still think information belongs to the person who discovers it?" "Claire is not part of the business." "Then she should not know your address." "She found it." "That is worse." Dominic poured neither drink. Vincent sat in the chair across from him. "Who is she?" "A woman whose mother is sick. That explains the money." "It does not explain the look on your face." "There is no look." Vincent laughed softly. "You have always been a poor liar around people you want to protect." Dominic's eyes hardened. "Do not say her name outside this room." "I did not say it inside. Do not ask anyone to follow her." "Would I need to? Carbone already did." Dominic stepped closer to the desk. "If Vincent's men go near St. Catherine, I will know." Vincent lifted one eyebrow. "You speak as if we are not on the same side." "We are not on any side that includes using her." "Using her for what?" "To remind me who owns my loyalty." Vincent's smile faded. "You are my brother's son." "I remember." "Then act like it." Dominic looked at the photograph again. Salvatore Greco had not appeared outside the brownstone by accident. Carbone watched money. He watched movement. He watched weakness. But Vincent watched all three. Marco broke the silence. Greco's sedan was found near the river. Empty, Dominic asked. Yes. Phones? Burners, nothing useful. Vincent stood. Then this is simple. The woman disappears from your life and there is nothing left to use. Dominic looked at him. No. One word. Quiet. Final. Vincent studied him more carefully. You have known her for how long? That does not matter. It matters if you are willing to expose the family for a stranger. Dominic's voice lowered. She did not expose us. You paid her debt. You let her enter your home. You allowed Carbone to photograph her at your gate. I allowed none of that. You allowed yourself to care. The room went still. Vincent placed his untouched glass on the desk. End it. Dominic did not move. Vincent continued. No calls, no visits, no more charity. Marco will arrange protection around the hospital until Carbone loses interest. Claire decides who goes near the hospital. Vincent stared at him. Claire. It was the first time he said her name. Dominic's expression changed. Marco saw it. Vincent saw it too. The older man smiled without warmth. There it is. Dominic stepped forward until only the desk separated them. If you put a man near her without permission, I will remove him. From the hospital, from the city, Vincent's smile vanished. You are threatening your own family. I am defining the boundary. Vincent held Dominic's gaze. Your father would have called this weakness. My father mistook fear for obedience. The words stayed in the room after Dominic spoke them. Vincent buttoned his coat. Carbone will not respect your boundary. They will. Why? Because I will make the cost clear. Vincent moved toward the door. Before leaving, he turned. A woman who sends goodbye messages is already standing near an edge. Men like us do not pull people back, Dominic. We give them another reason to fall. The door closed behind him. Marco remained. After several seconds, he said, He is not wrong about the danger. He is wrong about her. You barely know her. Dominic picked up Claire's printed message. I knew enough to answer. Marco watched him fold the paper. What are you going to do? Find out why Greco was watching the house. And Claire? Dominic placed the message inside his coat. Nothing. Marco looked surprised. Nothing. She told me not to contact her. And if Carbone goes near the hospital, Dominic turned toward the window, then I make sure she never has to wonder whether I told her the truth. The following afternoon, Rachel arrived at St. Catherine with an overnight bag and no excuses. She entered Helen's room, placed the bag on the floor, and hugged Claire so tightly that neither woman could pretend everything was fine. I am sorry, Rachel whispered. Claire closed her eyes. I know. This time it did not erase anything. It was only the beginning of honesty. Rachel stayed through the evening. She spoke with the doctors. She took notes. She brought Claire soup from the cafe and refused to accept the answer that coffee counted as dinner. When Helen fell asleep, the sisters sat in the waiting room. Rachel leaned forward. Tell me about him. Claire stared at the untouched soup. Dominic? The Mafia stranger who paid $91,000. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. There is no good way to say it. Claire told her everything. The first message, the calls, the foundation, the brownstone, the photograph, the black sedan. Rachel listened without interrupting. When Claire finished, she asked, Do you trust him? Claire thought for a long time. I trust the way he listens. That is not the same as trusting the man. No. Do you want to see him again? Claire looked at her phone on the table. I do not know. Rachel followed her gaze. He has not contacted you. I told him not to. And he listened. Yes. Rachel sat back. That makes this harder. Claire almost laughed. Everything does. At 10:30, Rachel went downstairs to call her children. Claire stayed with Helen until visiting hours ended. She walked alone toward the parking garage. The hospital corridors were quiet. Her footsteps echoed against polished floors. Outside, snow had stopped, but the wind pushed loose powder across the pavement. Claire entered the garage and immediately noticed the black sedan. It was parked near the far stairwell. Different plates, same body shape. The driver's seat was empty. Claire slowed. Her car was one level above. She looked toward the security camera, then toward the elevator. A man stepped out from behind a concrete column. Dark coat, gray at the temples, scar along his cheek. The driver from the photograph. He smiled. "Claire Bennett." She did not answer. He took one step closer. "Mr. Russo has expensive taste." Claire backed toward the elevator. The man moved with her. "He paid a great deal of money to keep you comfortable." Her hand entered her coat pocket. She found the card Dominic had placed on the kitchen table. She had taken it without remembering. A private security number. The man watched her. Calling someone. Claire pressed the number. Marco answered immediately. "Where are you?" The question came before she spoke. "St. Catherine's parking garage, level 4. The man with the scar kept walking. Marco's voice sharpened. "Is someone there?" "Yes. Move toward the elevator. He is between me and it. Fire alarm, red box on the north wall." Claire looked past the man. 20 feet away. He followed her eyes. "Do not make this difficult." Claire ran. He reached for her coat. His fingers caught the fabric, but not her arm. Claire slammed her palm against the fire alarm. A siren exploded through the garage. Red lights flashed. Metal doors opened. Hospital workers emerged from the stairwell. A security guard shouted from the lower ramp. The man released Claire and disappeared between two parked cars. Marco remained on the phone. "Claire, I am here. Stay where people can see you." Security guards surrounded her. Rachel came running from the elevator, pale and breathless. She grabbed Claire's shoulders. "What happened?" Before Claire could answer, headlights swept across the garage entrance. A black car stopped near the security barrier. Dominic stepped out. He wore no coat. Snow caught in his dark hair as he crossed the concrete toward her. He stopped several feet away. He did not touch her. His eyes moved over her face, her hands her coat, searching for injuries. "You called," he said. Claire looked at the red alarm box. "I made my own decision." Dominic's gaze followed hers. For the first time that night, something almost warm entered his expression. "You did." Marco approached with a security guard. "We have the footage." Dominic's attention shifted. "Greco." Marco nodded. Rachel looked between them. "Who is Greco?" Dominic answered without hiding the truth. "A man who wanted to know whether Claire could be used against me." Rachel moved closer to her sister. Claire held Dominic's gaze. "Can I?" The question silenced everyone. Dominic looked at her as though the honest answer cost him something. "Yes." Claire's face tightened. "Then say the rest." He did. "Anyone I care about can be used against me." Rachel whispered, "This ends now." Dominic did not argue. He looked only at Claire. "I will not ask you to stay near this." Claire heard the difference. "Not I will send you away. Not I will decide what is safest." He was finally placing the choice where it belonged. Behind him, Marco received a call. He listened for several seconds, then lowered the phone. "Vincent wants you at the restaurant." Dominic did not move. Marco's expression hardened. "He says Claire has become a liability." Dominic turned slowly. The coldness that entered his face was not the same as before. This time it carried a decision. "Tell Vincent she is not a liability." Marco waited. Dominic looked back at Claire. "She is the line." The words followed Dominic into the elevator. Marco stood beside him in silence as the doors closed on the hospital garage. Claire remained behind with Rachel and 2 security officers, but Dominic could still see her face in the final narrowing space between the doors. Not frightened, not grateful, angry enough to remain standing. Marco waited until the elevator began to descend. "Vincent will hear what you said. He was meant to. You are drawing a line through the middle of your own family." Dominic watched the floor numbers change. "No. Vincent drew it when he sent Greco near the hospital." Marco turned toward him. "We do not know that." "We will. And if he did," the doors opened into the hospital lobby. Dominic stepped out. "Then he will learn what the line costs." Outside, the wind cut between the buildings. Dominic had left the brownstone without a coat, and the cold pressed through his shirt as he crossed toward the waiting car. Marco followed. "You should stay with her. She did not ask me to. That has never mattered before." Dominic stopped beside the rear door. "It matters now." Marco studied him for a moment. Then he opened the car. Across the city, Russo's restaurant had closed early. The dining room lights were dim. Chairs rested upside down on most of the tables. The smell of garlic wine and old wood filled the empty space. Vincent sat alone in the private room near the back. A glass of red wine stood before him. 2 plates of untouched food had gone cold between the candles. Dominic entered without knocking. Vincent looked at his shirt. "You ran out without a coat." There was no time. There is always time to appear in control. Dominic closed the door. "Did you send Greco to the hospital?" Vincent lifted his glass. "Sit down. Answer me. You have forgotten how these conversations work." "No, I have stopped pretending they work." Vincent took a slow drink. "Carbone has been watching the family for months." "That is not what I asked." "I did not send Greco." Dominic remained standing. Vincent placed the glass down. "But I may have allowed information to travel in a direction that encouraged curiosity." The room became very still. Marco stood near the door. Dominic's voice lowered. "You gave them her name." "I gave them nothing. You let them learn where she would be. I let them understand that your attention had moved. Toward a hospital. Toward weakness." Dominic crossed the distance between them. The candle flame moved as he reached the table. "You used a frightened woman to test me." Vincent's expression did not change. "I used nothing. Greco was meant to watch, not touch. He followed her into a parking garage. That was poor discipline." "It was your decision. It was a warning. To me, to both of you." Dominic leaned over the table. "Claire is not part of this family. That is precisely the problem. You are changing the way you move for someone who does not understand the price. She understands more than you think." Vincent gave a faint smile. "Does she know about Detroit?" Dominic's face hardened. "Does she know about the dock contracts? The alderman? The man who disappeared after he spoke to the wrong detective? She knows what I have done. No. She knows the version that allows you to stand near her without seeing disgust." Dominic straightened. "You think shame gives you power over me. It always has. Not anymore." Vincent looked toward Marco. "You hear him?" Marco did not respond. Vincent returned his attention to Dominic. "What do you intend to do? Separate the legitimate companies?" Vincent's face became unreadable. "From what from you?" The candle crackled between them. Dominic continued. "Russo Hospitality, the commercial properties, the logistics company, and the foundation will move into an independent trust." Vincent laughed once. It was a quiet sound without amusement. "You cannot remove half the organization because a woman looked at you and asked whether the money was clean. I can remove what belongs to me. Nothing belongs to you alone. The properties my father left me do. Your father left them to the family. He left them in my name. Because he trusted blood. He trusted paper." Vincent stood. The older man was not as tall as Dominic, but years of obedience had taught the room to bend around him. "You would damage everything your father built. My father built restaurants and warehouses. You built fear inside them. Fear kept them standing. Fear kept everyone trapped." Vincent stepped closer. "And what does she offer instead?" Dominic said nothing. Vincent's eyes narrowed. "A promise. A warm bed. A chance to imagine you are not who you are. She offers nothing. Then why destroy yourself for her? I am not doing this for her." Vincent smiled. "That is the first lie you have told tonight." Dominic's gaze did not move. "She did not ask me to leave the family. She asked me to stop deciding that control was protection." The smile disappeared from Vincent's face. "You are becoming sentimental." "No. I am becoming precise." Dominic reached into his coat pocket, then remembered he had left without one. Marco stepped forward and placed a folder on the table. Vincent looked at him. Marco's expression remained calm. Dominic opened the folder. Inside were property transfers, financial statements, and signed authorizations. The first documents were filed this afternoon. Vincent looked down at the papers. "You planned this before the hospital. I began after the brownstone. You moved against me without discussion. You taught me not to announce a decision before it was protected." Vincent's eyes lifted. For the first time, anger broke through his polish. "You ungrateful son of a coward!" Dominic did not react. Vincent swept the wine glass from the table. It struck the wall and shattered. "You think a trust protects you? You think lawyers will stop men who have spent 30 years feeding from these companies? No, then what will information?" Dominic placed another document on the table. A list of shell companies, accounts, payments, names. Vincent looked at the first page and went still. Marco closed the door behind them. Dominic said, "If Claire Bennett, her mother, or her sister is approached again, copies go to the federal task force." Vincent stared at him. "You would inform on your own family. I would expose you. You are the family, not the part that touched her." Vincent's hand tightened around the edge of the table. "You think you can threaten me and walk away clean? I am not clean." Dominic's voice remained quiet. "That is why the threat works." For several seconds, no one moved. Then Vincent looked at Marco. "You helped him." Marco answered, "I helped protect the businesses. From me, from the war, this would become." Vincent turned back to Dominic. "Carbone will smell division. Let them. They will come for the roots. They can have the criminal ones." Vincent stared at him as if he no longer recognized the man standing across the table. "You would abandon everything. No, only what should have died years ago." The older man lowered himself slowly into the chair. His anger had not disappeared. It had become colder. "And the woman, she remains untouched. You cannot guarantee that." "I can guarantee what happens if she is not." Vincent studied the papers once more. "You have your father's arrogance." Dominic stepped back. "No, I have his mistake. I believed loyalty required silence." He turned toward the door. Vincent spoke before he reached it. "She will leave you when she understands what your name costs." Dominic stopped. He did not turn around. That is her choice. He opened the door and walked out. Claire did not sleep that night. Rachel stayed in the chair beside Helen's bed while Claire sat near the window with her phone in her lap. Dominic had sent no messages. She had not asked him to. That silence felt different now. Before, silence had meant abandonment. With Dominic, it meant he was trying to listen. At 2:16 in the morning, Rachel opened her eyes. "You should lie down. I am fine. That phrase should be illegal." Claire looked at her sister. Rachel pushed herself upright. "What did the doctor say? That Mom is stable? And what did you hear that stable can change?" Rachel nodded. The machines continued their measured sounds around them. After a while, Rachel said, "I keep thinking about the message." Claire looked back at the window. "I do too. I should have called. Yes. I thought you were being dramatic." Claire's face tightened. Rachel closed her eyes. "That sounded cruel. It was honest. I was angry with you." "For what?" "For being the one Mom always called." Claire stared at her. Rachel continued before she could speak. "When Dad died, you moved back home. You took her to appointments. You fixed things. Every time I called, one of you had already handled it. You had children. I also had excuses." Claire looked at Helen. "You could have said something, so could you." The answer hurt because it was true. Rachel leaned forward. "You never ask. You wait until people notice." Claire's voice became quiet. "I should not have to disappear before someone does." "No." Rachel wiped at her eyes. "You should not." Claire looked down at the phone. "He noticed. The stranger." "Yes." Rachel followed her gaze. "Does that make you love him?" Claire almost rejected the word. Instead, she considered it. "I do not know him well enough to call it love. You know enough to be afraid for him. That is not the same thing." "No." Rachel pulled the blanket around her shoulders. "But it is not nothing." Morning arrived without warmth. At 7:40, Dr. Foster entered Helen's room with another physician. Claire knew before he spoke. Doctors who carried good news did not arrive in pairs. Helen's oxygen levels had dropped during the night. Blood tests suggested a new infection. Her blood pressure was falling. They needed to move her back to intensive care. Claire stood beside the bed as nurses disconnected monitors and prepared the transport. Helen opened her eyes. "Claire, I am here." "Rachel." "Right here, Mom." Helen looked from one daughter to the other. For a moment she seemed pleased. Then the pain returned to her face. Claire held her hand as the bed moved through the hallway. At the intensive care doors, a nurse stopped them. You need to wait here. Claire released her mother's fingers one at a time. The doors closed. She did not cry. She did not speak. She walked away from Rachel, past the waiting room, past the elevators, and into the stairwell. Rachel followed. Claire, I need air. It is 20 degrees outside. I need air. She kept moving. Rachel did not try to stop her. Claire crossed the hospital lobby and entered the parking garage. The same concrete levels rose above her. The same cold wind moved through the open walls. She climbed to the 3rd floor. Space 14B was empty. Claire stood where her car had been on the night she sent the message. For a moment, the past folded over the present. $17. The medical bill. Her mother unable to breathe. The phone in her hand. The terrible certainty that no one would understand until she was gone. Claire opened Dominic's contact. Her thumb hovered above his name. She did not write goodbye. She pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Claire. She heard movement on his side, a chair scraping, a door opening. My mother is back in intensive care. I am coming. No. Dominic stopped. Claire closed her eyes. I do not need you to come. Tell me what you need. The question almost broke her. I do not know. Then start with what you do not want. I do not want you to call the hospital. I will not. I do not want you to send anyone. I will not. I do not want you to fix this. His voice softened. I cannot. Claire pressed her back against the concrete pillar. I need you to stay on the phone. I am here. She slid down until she sat on the cold ground. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Cars moved on the street below. A siren passed in the distance. Claire listened to Dominic breathe. Eventually he asked, Where are you in the garage? Which level? She almost told him not to ask. Then she understood. He was not sending anyone. He was trying to picture the space around her. 3. Near your car? No. A pause. Near where you were that night? Yes. Dominic did not tell her to leave. He did not tell her the garage was dangerous. He simply remained. Claire said, I thought I was done. That night? Yes. I know. No, I mean completely done. Not tired. Not overwhelmed. I thought everyone would be better after the inconvenience of losing me was over. Dominic's breathing changed. Do not make it smaller now. I am not. Good. Claire looked across the empty parking space. I hated you for understanding, I know. I hated that Rachel did not, I know. I hated that you paid the bill because it made me feel like you saw me as a problem. I never did. What did you see a person carrying too much? That still sounds like a problem. No. His voice was quiet. It sounds like a person who should not have been carrying it alone. Claire rested her head against the pillar. What are you doing sitting in my car? We're outside the hospital. She opened her eyes. You came. I did not enter. You said you would not. I said I would not come up. That is not what I meant. No. His answer carried no defense. Claire let out a tired breath. Why are you outside? Because if you decide you want me there, I can be. And if I do not, I stay in the car. For how long? As long as you are in that garage. Claire looked toward the ramp. She could not see his car from where she sat. You always make everything sound simple. It is not simple. What is it? A choice. Who's yours? The word settled between them. Claire pulled her coat more tightly around herself. At 10,000, Rachel found her in the garage. Claire was still on the phone. Her sister sat beside her without asking questions. Dominic heard the movement. Rachel. Yes. I'm going upstairs, Claire said. I will remain nearby. You do not have to. I know. Claire ended the call. Rachel looked at the screen. He is here in the parking lot. You told him not to come. I told him not to fix it. Rachel considered that. And he is staying outside, yes. Is that progress? Claire stood. I think it is effort. They returned to intensive care. Hours passed. Helen's infection had spread to her bloodstream. The doctors adjusted antibiotics and monitored her heart. Claire and Rachel took turns sitting beside the bed. In the afternoon, Helen opened her eyes but could not speak. Claire leaned close. You do not have to say anything. Helen's fingers moved weakly against the sheet. Claire placed her hand beneath them. We are both here. Rachel stood on the other side. Helen looked at each of them. Her breathing eased by a fraction. Outside the hospital, Dominic waited. Marco arrived just after noon and opened the passenger door. You have been sitting here for 4 hours. Yes. Vincent agreed to the terms. Dominic looked toward the hospital entrance. Agreed. He called it temporary. It is permanent. He may challenge the trust. Let him. Marco sat inside. The Carbone men have been told Claire is not part of any dispute. By who, Vincent? Dominic looked at him. Marco continued. He does not want federal attention. No one does. The records will remain protected. Yes. Marco glanced at the hospital. Does she know what you did know? You should tell her. When she asks. Marco leaned back. You are changing. Dominic's expression remained fixed on the entrance. No. I am correcting. That sounds less frightening. It should not. Marco almost smiled. Then his phone rang. He answered, listened, and handed it to Dominic. Fairmont's attorney. Dominic took the call. The attorney confirmed that Helen's payment had been converted into a formal charitable grant. No repayment would be required. Claire would receive full documentation and the right to refuse future assistance. Dominic approved the papers. Before ending the call, he added one instruction. Send everything directly to Ms. Bennett. Do not copy me. Marco looked at him after the call ended. She wanted to repay it. She wanted control over what happened, and this gives her that. It gives her the information. She can decide whether to challenge it. Marco studied him. You know, most men would call the payment generous. Most men were not told it felt like ownership. The sun lowered behind the hospital buildings. At 6:30, Claire came outside. Dominic saw her before she saw him. She stood beneath the entrance lights looking across the row of parked cars. He stepped out. The cold had deepened. His breath formed in the air. Claire walked toward him. Her face was pale with exhaustion. How is she? The antibiotics are working. Dominic released a breath. Good. She is not safe yet. I know. Claire stopped several feet away. How long have you been here since you called? That was 9 hours ago. Yes. You could have gone inside. You did not invite me. Claire looked at him carefully. Would you have stayed in the car all night? Yes. That is ridiculous. Probably. A small sound escaped her. Not quite a laugh. Dominic reached for the passenger door. Claire opened it before he could. She sat inside. He walked around the car and entered the driver's side. For a moment, neither spoke. The interior held the faint scent of leather and coffee. A paper cup sat untouched in the holder. Claire looked at his hands on the steering wheel. What happened with Vincent Dominic turned toward her. You know Marco said his name in the garage? I am tired, not deaf. Dominic looked forward again. He allowed Carbone to learn where you were. Claire's face became still. He sent that man. Not directly. That sounds like the kind of distinction criminals enjoy. It is. What did you do? I removed several legitimate businesses from his control. Claire stared at him. You did that today, I began earlier. Because of me. No, do not lie. Dominic looked at her. You forced me to see something I had spent years avoiding. That is not the same as doing it for me. No. What happens now? There may be financial challenges, internal resistance, investigations, and danger. Yes. Claire absorbed the answer. Dominic continued. I gave Vincent records that would expose him if anyone approaches you or your family again. You threatened to turn him in. Yes. Would that expose you too? Yes. Claire looked away. Outside the windshield, a nurse crossed the lot with her coat pulled tightly around her. You would go to prison. Possibly. Do not say it like that. Like what? Like it is another bill you can pay. Dominic's face tightened. I know it is not. Claire turned back to him. You cannot keep placing yourself between me and every consequence. I am not. You are threatening your family, risking prison, and sitting outside a hospital for 9 hours. The first two are consequences of my own choices. The last was because you asked me to stay. Claire fell silent. He was right. She had asked. Dominic said, I do not expect you to remain near me. That sounds like a decision. It is information. No, it is an exit you are placing in front of me before I can decide whether I want it. His eyes held hers. What do you want? Claire looked down at the space between them. I want my mother to live. Yes. I want Rachel to stop apologizing and start showing up. Yes, I want to return to my classroom. Yes. I want to know that the money used for my mother did not come from someone else's suffering. It did not. I want proof. You will receive it. I want no one entering my home following me or assigning guards without my permission. Agreed, I want Rachel informed if there is a direct threat. Agreed, I want the foundation documents in my name, not yours. They already are. Claire looked at him. You did that today. She pressed her lips together. Dominic waited. Claire continued. If you want a place in my life, you do not get to protect me with lies. I understand. No, Dominic. You agree too quickly when you are afraid I will leave. His face became unreadable. Claire leaned closer. Can you actually do it? I can tell you the truth. Even when it makes you look guilty, yes. Even when you know I may walk away, his answer took longer. Yes. Can you stop deciding what I can handle? He looked at his hands. I can try. That is the first honest answer you have given me tonight. Dominic met her eyes again. I may fail. Then I tell you, and if I do not listen, I leave. The words hurt him. Claire saw it. He did not argue. That is fair, he said. She almost smiled. You hate that word. I am learning to respect it. Silence filled the car. Claire looked toward the hospital entrance. I am not choosing your world. I would not ask you to. I am not forgiving everything you have done. I do not expect you to. I am not promising forever. Dominic's voice softened. I did not ask for forever. Claire turned back to him. You did not ask for anything. No, that does not make you noble. I know, it makes you impossible. I have heard worse. She studied his face. The scar near his eyebrow, the exhaustion beneath his eyes, the control he wore so carefully because without it, everything inside him might show. Claire thought of the first message. I am still here if you need someone. He had answered without knowing her. Then he had crossed boundaries because he could not bear the possibility of failing again. Now he sat beside her and allowed the silence to remain hers. Claire reached across the console. Dominic watched her hand but did not move. She placed her fingers over his. His hand was warm. For several seconds he remained completely still. You did not ask if you could touch me, he said quietly. Claire looked at him. I am deciding now. His fingers closed around hers. Not tightly. Not as a promise she could not escape. Only enough to answer. Through the hospital windows, lights burned against the winter darkness. Upstairs, Helen Bennett fought her way through another hour. Rachel sat beside her bed. Marco waited in another car at the edge of the lot. Vincent Russo studied the documents that had divided his empire, and Dominic remained exactly where Claire had chosen to place him, beside her, still there. The words remained with Claire long after she released Dominic's hand and returned upstairs. Helen survived the night. By sunrise, her blood pressure had begun to stabilize. The new antibiotics were working, and Dr. Foster allowed himself to use the word improvement without immediately taking it back. Claire stood at the foot of her mother's bed while pale winter light entered through the blinds. Rachel slept in a chair with her head against the wall. Her coat covered her like a blanket. One shoe had fallen to the floor. Helen opened her eyes. For several seconds she stared at the ceiling. Then she turned toward Claire. You look terrible. Claire laughed softly. That seems to be your favorite diagnosis. Helen tried to smile, accurate. Claire moved closer and took her hand. Rachel is here. I can see that. She stayed all night. Helen looked toward her older daughter. About time. Rachel woke at the sound of her name. She sat upright, confused, then saw Helen watching her. Mom! Helen lifted 2 fingers. Rachel rushed to the bed and caught them in both hands. For the first time in weeks, neither sister looked at the monitors. They looked only at their mother. Outside the hospital, Dominic remained in his car until Marco returned with coffee. You could go home, Marco said. Dominic watched the hospital entrance. So could you. Marco handed him a cup and sat in the passenger seat. Vincent called 3 attorneys. He will call more. He wants to challenge the trust. He can try. You may lose 2 properties. I know. The logistics contracts too. Yes. Marco studied him. You spent your adult life protecting those companies. I spent my adult life protecting the reason they were useful. That reason made us rich. That reason made every clean dollar depend on dirty ones. Marco looked toward the entrance. Does Claire know how serious this is? She knows enough. That is not what she asked from you. Dominic turned toward him. Marco raised the coffee. I am only repeating what she said. Before Dominic could answer, the hospital doors opened. Claire stepped outside. She saw his car and crossed the lot. Dominic lowered the window. My mother is awake. Relief moved across his face. Good. The infection is responding good. Claire looked at Marco. He lifted his cup. I brought coffee he refuses to drink. Thank you for your service. It is difficult work. Claire looked back at Dominic. You should go home. Are you asking me to leave? I am telling you that you did what I asked. He studied her expression. And what do you need now, Sleep? For you or me both? Dominic opened the door and stepped out. I will call when I wake up. Claire raised one eyebrow. You are assuming I want you to. No. Then ask. His eyes held hers. May I call you when I wake up? Claire let him wait. Yes. Dominic nodded. Before he entered the car, Claire said, Thank you for staying. His expression softened. You asked. The car pulled away. 6 weeks passed, not quickly. Recovery did not arrive like a door opening. It came in measurements. 5 minutes without additional oxygen. A full meal. 3 steps beside the bed. A morning when Helen remembered the nurse's name. A night when Claire slept for 4 hours without waking in panic. Helen moved from intensive care to a cardiac floor. From there, she entered rehabilitation, where the walls were pale yellow and the therapist refused to be impressed by excuses. Helen disliked all of them. That was how Claire knew she was improving. Rachel returned to Milwaukee twice, but she came back every weekend. She no longer made vague promises. I will be there Friday at 6. I can stay until Sunday afternoon. I called the insurance company. The case number is in the shared folder. Claire did not thank her for every responsibility. Rachel had asked her to stop. You make it sound like I am visiting your life, Rachel said one afternoon. This is my mother, too. Claire closed the folder between them. I am adjusting to what not being the only one. Rachel leaned forward. That is part of the problem. You decided you were alone before giving anyone a chance to prove otherwise. Claire looked at her. You did not come. No. You ignored my message. Yes. You do not get to make that my fault. I am not. Then what are you saying? Rachel's voice softened. I failed you. You also built your life around never needing anyone, then resented us for believing you. Claire looked down at her coffee. The accusation would once have sent her away. Now she remained seated. I do not know how to ask without feeling weak. Rachel nodded. I do not know how to help without waiting for permission. No easy apology followed. No perfect understanding appeared. But when they returned to Helen's room, they walked beside each other. That counted. Dominic called each day. Sometimes Claire answered. Sometimes she sent a message instead. He never complained. He did not appear at the hospital unless invited. He did not send flowers, food, or men in dark coats. When Claire asked for proof concerning the foundation payment, a lawyer mailed a complete file directly to her apartment. The money had come from the sale of a commercial property Dominic had owned personally for 8 years. The payment had been converted into a formal charitable grant through the hospital. There was no repayment agreement, no hidden condition, no obligation to Dominic. Claire read the documents at her kitchen table until midnight. Then she called him. He answered quietly. Is something wrong? I received the file. Good. You gave me more than 300 pages. You asked for proof. I did not ask for the history of every brick. The attorneys are thorough. They are terrified of you. Some of them. Claire turned another page. The property was a hotel. Yes. Was it clean? The ownership and sale were legal. That was not my question. Dominic remained silent. Claire waited. Finally, he said, a contractor was pressured to use one of our union crews during renovations. What does pressured mean? He was told permits might be delayed if he refused. Were they numbered because he agreed? Yes. Claire leaned back. So the money was legal, but the property was still touched by your family? Yes. Why was that not in the lawyer's summary? Because it did not affect legal ownership. That sounds like one of your distinctions. It is. She closed the file. I am not returning the grant. Dominic said nothing. I thought I had to. Claire continued. I thought accepting it meant accepting that you had the right to decide, but returning it would hurt my mother only to prove something about me. That sounds reasonable. Do not sound relieved. I am trying not to. Claire almost smiled. I will donate to the foundation when I can. You do not have to. I know. Then why? Because I want another family to receive help without meeting you first. A quiet laugh came through the phone. It was the first time Claire had heard it. The sound changed him. For one moment he was not the Rousseau heir or the man in courthouse photographs. He was simply Dominic. You should do that more often, she said. What laugh? I will consider it. That means no. It means I am unfamiliar with the process. Their conversations grew less guarded. Dominic told her when Vincent challenged the trust. He told her when 2 managers resigned. He told her when federal investigators requested records from Rousseau Logistics. He did not soften the truth. Claire did not ask him to. Some nights he called from the brownstone while attorneys filled the rooms below. Other nights he called from the restaurant after closing. Claire could hear dishes moving. You own the restaurant, she said once. Why are you washing plates? The dishwasher quit. You could hire someone. At midnight you have men who follow people into parking garages. They're not trained for glassware. She smiled into the darkness. Claire returned to teaching part-time. On her first morning, she stood outside Lakeside Elementary with a canvas bag over her shoulder. Paper snowflakes covered the windows. A crooked sign read, "Welcome back, Miss Bennett." Claire touched the edge of it. For weeks, she had lived in rooms where every hour was measured by whether someone survived it. The school smelled like pencils glue and wet winter coats. Her principal met her near the office. You can leave any time, I know. You do not have to prove anything, I know. Your class prepared something. Claire looked through the small window in the classroom door. 22 students sat in unusual silence. That frightens me. It should. Claire opened the door. The children shouted her name. One boy ran forward and hugged her waist, then stepped back quickly. Sorry, I forgot to ask. Claire crouched. You can ask. Can I hug you? Yes. The room rushed toward her. For several seconds, Claire disappeared inside small arms and overlapping voices. At lunch, she checked her phone. Dominic had sent one message. How was the morning Claire photographed the paper planets hanging from the ceiling? Loud. His answer came. Good. No flowers arrived, no food, no books. He had listened. Helen left rehabilitation on a Thursday afternoon. She wore a navy coat and red lipstick. I look ill without color, she said. You are ill, Claire replied. That does not mean I have to cooperate visually. Rachel carried medication folders. Claire carried the oxygen equipment. A home health nurse named Denise waited at Helen's apartment. The neighbors had filled the freezer with soup and bread. Safety rails had been installed in the bathroom. A chair waited beside the window overlooking the sleeping garden. Helen touched the armrest after Claire helped her sit. I thought I would never see this room again. Claire knelt beside her. So did I. Helen looked down. You did not tell me. You had enough to fight. So did you. Claire rested her head against her mother's knee. Helen touched her hair. You are different. How you stop before answering. That sounds annoying. It is progress. Helen glanced toward the kitchen where Rachel arranged medication. You let your sister help. She does not give me much choice. Good. Helen's fingers moved gently through Claire's hair. And the man Claire lifted her head. What man? The expensive one. He has a name, I know. You have never met him. I know his type. How many Mafia heirs did you meet while serving pancakes? Chicago was more interesting before you were born. Claire laughed. Helen became serious. Is he still dangerous? Yes, is he trying not to be? I think so. That is not enough. No. Are you seeing him? Claire considered the question. They had spoken almost every day. They had held hands once. He had remained outside the hospital because she asked. I am deciding. Helen nodded. That sounds like you. 2 weeks later, Dominic asked to visit. May I meet your mother? Claire looked toward the living room where Helen was arguing with a game show. Why? Because she matters to you. Claire showed Helen the message. Does he expect anything? Helen asked. He says no. No one expects nothing. He says that too often. Then he is either lying or lonely. Do you want to meet him? Helen considered it. Will there be guards? Guns not inside. He can come for dinner. Dominic arrived at 6 exactly. No guards approached the building. He carried white flowers and a bakery box. Claire opened the door. You brought flowers. For your mother. I told you not to send flowers to the school. I did not send them. I carried them. Claire stepped aside. That distinction is dangerous, I have been told. Helen waited in the living room. Dominic approached but stopped several feet away. Mrs. Bennet. Helen. Helen. She studied him. Claire watched Dominic withstand the inspection with more tension than he had shown before Vincent. Helen pointed toward a chair. Sit, he sat. You paid my bill. Yes, without asking. Yes, my daughter hated that. I know. She still does. I know. Helen looked toward Claire. He agrees too quickly. I told him. Dominic said I am working on it. Helen returned her attention to him. What do you want from her? Her trust. That is not something she gives easily. No. And what do you offer? The truth. All of it. As much as I understand, that sounds careful. It is. Are you still a criminal? Claire held her breath. Dominic answered. Yes. Helen's gaze sharpened. I am separating my legal businesses from the criminal organization my family controls, he continued. That does not erase what I have done. No, Helen said, it does not. It may expose me to investigation. Good. Claire looked at her mother. Helen, what consequences are healthy? Dominic almost smiled. Helen noticed. You find that amusing? No, you should. I am charming. Dinner was simple, soup, bread, and salad. Afterward, Dominic washed the dishes. Helen watched from the doorway. You do that at home when necessary. Men who say that usually mean never. He owns a restaurant, Claire said. That does not mean he knows where plates go. Dominic placed a bowl in the lower cabinet. Helen nodded with approval, observant. Later, he offered Helen his arm when she returned to her chair, but waited until she accepted. Claire noticed. So did Helen. At the door, Helen touched Dominic's sleeve. My daughter does not need another person deciding whether she is strong enough to know the truth. Ah, I understand. No, you are learning. Yes. She also does not need to prove she can survive everything alone. Dominic looked at Claire. I understand that too. Helen released his sleeve. Good. You can visit again. Claire stared at her mother. Helen. What? He brought cannoli. Outside, snow had begun to fall. Claire walked Dominic to the sidewalk. A black sedan waited at the far end of the block. Your security, she asked. Yes, you said no guards. No guards entered the building. That sounds like another distinction. It is. Claire looked at him. The threat level changed this morning, he said. A man connected to Vincent was seen near the restaurant. You should have told me before coming. Yes. Why did you not? I thought I could keep the visit separate from danger. You cannot. No. Do you need to leave? Yes. Then go. Disappointment crossed his face. Claire stepped closer. That was not rejection. I know. You do not look like you know. I am learning. She reached for his coat and pulled him down. The kiss was brief. Cold air, warm breath. A moment neither of them controlled long enough to ruin. When Claire stepped back, Dominic remained still. That was a decision, she said. Yes. Mine. Yes. You may kiss me back next time. A quiet intensity entered his face. Claire, go before you make another distinction. 3 days later, federal agents entered Russo Logistics. Dominic told Claire before the news reached the public. They had taken financial records. Some documents involved transactions he had approved years earlier. His attorney believed charges were possible. Are you afraid? Claire asked. Yes, good. You sound like your mother. She says fear tells us where to look. And where are you looking at you? Dominic fell silent. Claire continued. I am not staying because I believe consequences will disappear. I'm staying because you told me before I had to discover it in someone else's photograph. You may change your mind. Yes. That is all I need you to understand. I do. What can you decide today? Claire looked toward her classroom. That I am still here. Today is enough. By the end of January, Helen could walk from her bedroom to the kitchen without assistance. Rachel came every Friday. Claire worked 4 mornings a week. Dominic met with federal investigators twice. No charges had been filed. No promises had been made. One Sunday afternoon, Claire met Dominic near the lakefront. The wind came hard from the water. They walked beside ice-covered rocks with their hands in their coat pockets. Dominic looked tired. The investigation may take years, he said. I assumed. Vincent may challenge every company transfer. Yes. Carbone may take the criminal routes. Will you stop them? No, the answer surprised her. I am protecting the employees and legal assets. The rest can collapse. Vincent will not accept that peacefully. No. Claire stood beside him. Are you warning me away? I'm giving you the truth. Do you want me to leave his jaw tightened? No. But you would let me. I would hate it. That was not the question. Yes. The wind pushed Claire's hair across her face. Dominic lifted one hand, then stopped before touching her. She noticed. Claire stepped closer. I am not promising forever. I know. I'm not pretending what you did does not matter. I know. I will leave if you begin deciding my life for me again. I know. You say that too often. I'm trying not to agree too quickly. How is that going? Poorly. Claire smiled. When I sent that message, I thought staying meant enduring one more thing alone. Dominic said nothing. I thought being strong meant no one could see how close I was to breaking. I saw it, yes. Claire reached for his hand. This is not rescue, no. This is not ownership, no. This is not forgiveness for everything, no. What is it? Dominic looked at their joined hands. A beginning if you want one. Claire considered the hospital the wrong number and every choice that had followed. Then she kissed him. This time Dominic answered. Slowly, carefully, as if desire could be strong without becoming control. Neither said love. For now they had truth choice and another day. That night, Claire checked on Helen, confirmed the oxygen machine was working, and placed water beside her bed. In the kitchen, Rachel had left a note. I will be here Friday at 6. Do not do everything before I arrive. Claire smiled. She returned to her own apartment near midnight. Student artwork covered the desk. The foundation documents rested in a closed drawer. A caregiver support group schedule was attached to the refrigerator. Her phone vibrated. Dominic. Home, Claire typed. Yes, his reply came. Good. She opened his contact information. The screen displayed his full name, Dominic Russo, a name that carried restaurants, warehouses, courtrooms, old violence, and an uncertain future. Claire pressed edit. She erased his name. In its place, she typed 2 words. Still here. She saved the contact. Another message arrived. Claire looked at the screen. On the night they met, she had placed the phone face down because she believed nothing waited beyond that moment. Now she placed it on the nightstand because morning no longer felt impossible. She turned off the lamp. Outside, Chicago moved beneath the winter sky. Trains crossed bridges. Hospital lights burned through dark windows. A restaurant kitchen closed for the night. Somewhere across the city, Dominic's phone vibrated. Claire had sent one final answer. Still here. She closed her eyes. The message had gone to the wrong man, but he had answered at exactly the right time.